Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about loyalty. For a long time, we've been taught that loyalty is a sacred, unbreakable thing, something we owe to others, something we hold close because it makes us good, kind, or valuable. But let's ask ourselves, what are we being loyal to? Is it a person, an idea, an expectation we carry? Sometimes we become so devoted to loyalty that we lose sight of who we are and what we truly need. You see, loyalty should never come at the cost of ourselves. Loyalty that demands our silence or asks us to betray our own beliefs, values, or well being, that's not loyalty. That's a one-way road to self neglect. True loyalty is honoring the commitment we have to ourselves first, then allowing others to share in that commitment. The world is better off when we are genuine, when we know our boundaries, and when we show up as ourselves. Let's be brave enough to stop giving away our loyalty to things that hold us back. Stand firm. Know what matters to you. Only then can you be truly loyal to others in a way that is healthy and freeing. So today I challenge you, stop being loyal to things that no longer serve you. Start being loyal to your truth. Honor yourself because you're worth it. Ask yourself why you're loyal to certain people or commitments. Loyalty should feel empowering, not burdensome. Clarify your personal values. Loyalty that asks you to compromise them isn't genuine. Loyalty isn't about sacrificing your well-being. Stay tuned to what you need emotionally and mentally. True loyalty requires boundaries that protect your time, energy, and sense of self. Loyalty that hinges on your silence or compliance is unhealthy and unsustainable. Never commit to growth, even if it means shifting loyalties when something no longer aligns with who you're becoming. Self-loyalty is essential. It allows you to offer more genuine loyalty to others. Challenge the belief that loyalty is about endurance. Loyalty should feel fulfilling, not depleting. True loyalty thrives in relationships where both sides feel valued and respected. Genuine loyalty allows you to be your true self, no masks required. That's the kind of loyalty worth giving. When it comes to loyalty, we sometimes wear it like armor, thinking it protects our relationships, makes us strong, or keeps us valuable to others. But there's a point where loyalty becomes something else entirely, where it holds us in place, even when the ground beneath us is shifting. We often don't stop to question it because we're afraid of seeming disloyal, selfish, or ungrateful. But loyalty is only meaningful when it's intentional and honest. It's okay to pause and ask, what am I being loyal to here? And is this commitment lifting me up, or is it weighing me down? Asking these questions isn't a betrayal. It's the first step in understanding whether we're remaining in situations that no longer align with our values, or if we're caught up in a pattern we never chose consciously. Imagine if we only held onto the things that genuinely served us and brought out our best. True loyalty has to come with choice, not pressure or obligation. When we reevaluate, we're not stepping away from loyalty itself, we're redefining it in a way that respects our growth and our needs. By letting go of loyalties that no longer serve us, we actually make room for relationships and commitments that are based on genuine respect and shared values. We're allowed to evolve, and so are our loyalties. Defining our values can feel like uncovering pieces of ourselves that were always there, just waiting to be recognized. It's about getting honest about what we believe, what matters to us, and how we want to show up in the world. Often we move through life with an unspoken set of values we've absorbed from family, friends, or society. But when we take a step back and ask ourselves, what do I really stand for, we begin to see what truly resonates with who we are at our core. Defining our values is an invitation to check in with ourselves in a way that's raw and unfiltered. It's a reminder that we don't have to live by anyone else's rules or expectations. We get to decide what feels true and right. Maybe kindness and compassion are at the center of your values, or perhaps you're driven by honesty and courage. Whatever they are, these values are the foundation of how we build our lives, relationships, and choices. Once we know our values, loyalty takes on a new form. We're no longer tied to people or commitments simply because we feel we should be. Instead, we choose relationships and opportunities that align with our core beliefs. And when challenges arise, our values act as a compass, guiding us back to ourselves. In knowing what we stand for, we give ourselves permission to live authentically, knowing that each decision we make reflects the truest parts of who we are. Listening to our needs can feel like a foreign language, especially when we've been conditioned to put others first. We're often so focused on showing up for others that we forget what it even feels like to listen to ourselves. We're used to pushing through discomfort, brushing aside our own feelings, and calling it strength. But here's the truth: listening to our needs is not a sign of weakness or selfishness, it's an act of self-respect. It's recognizing that just like everyone else, we have inner worlds that deserve care and attention. When we listen to our needs, we're honoring our own humanity. Maybe we need rest, connection, solitude, or creativity. These aren't indulgences, they're essentials. And when we ignore them, it's like trying to run on empty. We may be able to keep going for a while, but eventually we're left exhausted, resentful, or disconnected from ourselves. Listening to our needs is about getting in touch with what truly fuels us so we can be present, grounded, and resilient. It's realizing that we deserve the same compassion and understanding we offer others. Listening also means pausing long enough to check in with ourselves. It's easy to overlook our needs when we're busy, stressed, or afraid of what we might uncover. Sometimes we're afraid to listen because we might realize something has to change. And change can be terrifying, especially if it means setting boundaries, shifting priorities, or rethinking relationships. But if we don't make space to hear ourselves, we risk losing sight of who we are altogether. Learning to listen to our needs means starting small, perhaps with daily practices of self-reflection. It might look like asking yourself, how am I really doing today, or what do I need in this moment? Maybe it's time with a friend, or maybe it's a quiet moment alone. Maybe it's saying no to something, or maybe it's asking for help. These small acts are signs that we're tuning in and giving ourselves permission to matter in our own lives. When we begin to listen, we build trust with ourselves. We learn that our needs aren't obstacles or inconveniences, they're indicators of what's meaningful and sustainable for us. This doesn't mean life will be free of compromises or sacrifices, but it does mean we'll be better able to navigate those moments with clarity and confidence. We'll know when a sacrifice is worth it and when it's not, because we'll be rooted in an awareness of what we need to thrive. Listening to our needs is about setting the foundation for a life where we feel whole and aligned. It's not about turning away from others or their needs, it's about showing up in a way that is authentic and sustainable. We can give so much more to the people we care about when we're not pouring from an empty cup. By tuning into ourselves, we're not only taking care of our own well-being, but we're also modeling self-respect and boundaries for those around us. Ultimately, listening to our needs is a lifelong practice. Some days it's easy, and other days it feels like the hardest thing in the world. But each time we listen, we're reinforcing a commitment to honor ourselves. We're saying, I deserve to feel heard, respected, and cared for, and in doing so, we create lives that reflect not just what we do for others, but what we also lovingly do for ourselves. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most compassionate things we can do for ourselves and for the people around us. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out, they're about defining where we end and others begin, creating space that allows us to show up as our truest selves. Boundaries are a powerful reminder that we have limits, and that's okay. We all have emotional, mental, and physical thresholds that, when respected, allow us to thrive. Often we resist setting boundaries because we worry about seeming selfish, unkind, or disconnected. But boundaries are not walls, they're clear guidelines we create so we can engage meaningfully with others without losing ourselves in the process. When we say yes to everything and everyone, we're often saying no to our own needs, health, and peace. Setting boundaries is learning to say no when we need to, so that our yes is honest and heartfelt, not driven by guilt or obligation. Boundaries also protect our emotional energy. We've all experienced what it feels like to overextend, whether it's taking on extra work, tolerating disrespect, or holding space for others when we don't have the emotional capacity. Over time, these experiences drain us, leaving us tired, resentful, or disconnected. Healthy boundaries act as guardrails, helping us preserve our energy for the things and people who genuinely matter. By honoring our limits, we show up in a way that is sustainable, present, and genuine. Creating boundaries isn't easy, especially if we're used to people pleasing or if we fear conflict. At first, it can feel uncomfortable, like we're pushing people away. But boundaries, in fact, strengthen relationships because they bring honesty and clarity to our interactions. When we set boundaries, we're inviting others to meet us with respect, to understand what's important to us, and to build connections based on mutual understanding. To set boundaries, we first need to know what feels good and what doesn't, which means tuning into our emotions. When something feels uncomfortable or draining, that's often a sign a boundary needs to be set. It might be as simple as communicating to a friend that we need time for ourselves, or as challenging as addressing a family pattern that's no longer healthy. The courage to have these conversations is an act of self-respect, and each time we stand up for our boundaries, we build confidence in our ability to protect our well-being. Setting boundaries also teaches others how to interact with us. When we're clear and consistent, people learn what to expect, and they're more likely to respect those limits. Boundaries, however, are not about controlling others, they're about managing our own actions and responses. We can't always change how people behave, but we can choose to protect ourselves from behaviors that don't honor our needs and values. At its core, setting boundaries is about valuing ourselves enough to protect our peace and energy. It's an ongoing process, something we need to revisit as our needs, relationships, and priorities evolve. And there will be times when setting a boundary creates tension or discomfort, especially when others are used to us always being available. But in choosing to set limits, we're honoring a fundamental truth that we matter, that our needs are worthy of protection, and that healthy relationships grow from mutual respect. As we become more comfortable with boundaries, we begin to notice something incredible. The relationships that matter most to us will respect them. True friends, partners, and family members won't see our boundaries as a barrier. They'll recognize them as a sign of self-respect and will meet us in that space of understanding. And those who can't respect our boundaries, they may drift away, but in doing so, they create room for relationships that truly nourish us. So let's give ourselves permission to set boundaries. Let's recognize that we deserve to protect our time, our energy, and our hearts. Boundaries are not about cutting people off, they're about making space for deeper, more genuine connections. By setting boundaries, we're giving ourselves and everyone around us the opportunity to connect in a way that honors each person's needs, fostering relationships that are built on respect, empathy, and trust. Conditional loyalty is a subtle trap. We sometimes find ourselves in relationships or commitments where loyalty feels like it comes with strings attached, where there's an unspoken rule that we only matter as long as we behave a certain way, meet certain expectations, or don't ruffle any feathers. It's easy to fall into this pattern because it often feels safer to go along, to please others, and to avoid conflict. But conditional loyalty asks us to shrink ourselves, to quiet our own voice, and to mold ourselves to fit someone else's vision of who we should be. And in doing so, we sacrifice our authenticity. Conditional loyalty is about earning acceptance and approval at the cost of our self-worth. We may stay in a friendship, relationship, or job doing whatever it takes to stay in others' good graces, even when it feels one-sided or draining. This kind of loyalty becomes less about connection and more about maintaining appearances or stability, and it creates an imbalance where our own needs are consistently put last. Real loyalty doesn't come with a hidden price tag, it's a mutual exchange where both people feel valued and respected for who they truly are. True loyalty is freeing, not limiting. When we're in relationships that accept us unconditionally, we feel empowered to show up as our authentic selves without fear of rejection or criticism. We don't have to hide our mistakes, avoid tough conversations, or pretend to be someone we're not. Instead, we can bring our whole selves forward, knowing that we're valued just as we are. Relationships rooted in genuine loyalty give us the strength to face challenges together, to be honest even when it's uncomfortable, and to grow without feeling held back. It takes courage to let go of conditional loyalty because it often means questioning the relationships we've grown accustomed to. We might worry that if we stop trying so hard to fit in, we'll lose people who matter to us. But by releasing conditional loyalty, we're making space for healthier, more fulfilling connections. We're saying, I deserve to be in relationships where I am valued for who I am, not for what I can provide or for how well I fit someone else's mold. And that's a powerful choice. Choosing to avoid conditional loyalty also means being clear with ourselves about our own boundaries. It means recognizing when we're in a situation where we're expected to sacrifice too much of ourselves. When we give up conditional loyalty, we're not rejecting loyalty altogether, we're simply shifting it to a place where it's built on respect, trust, and reciprocity. We're prioritizing loyalty to our own values and well-being, making sure that our loyalty to others doesn't require us to betray ourselves. In healthy relationships, loyalty is flexible and resilient. It doesn't demand constant approval or conformity. Instead, it thrives on understanding and the willingness to accept each other's growth. True loyalty gives us the courage to have real conversations, to disagree openly, and to stay committed through ups and downs without needing one person to change who they are to keep the peace. And it's worth noting that letting go of conditional loyalty doesn't mean cutting people out or closing off entirely. It simply means we're making a conscious choice to surround ourselves with people who love us freely without strings attached. We deserve relationships that make us feel safe, understood, and valued. So if you find yourself in a situation where your loyalty feels like it depends on how well you can conform or please, consider if that's the kind of loyalty that truly honors you. Letting go of conditional loyalty may lead to fewer, but deeper and more authentic connections. It's an act of courage that allows us to stand firm in our own worth, to honor our needs, and to trust that genuine loyalty will find its way to us in forms that are enriching and supportive. In doing so, we create a life surrounded by people who see us fully, accept us unconditionally, and are truly there through all the seasons of our growth. Being loyal to growth is about choosing to honor the journey of who we are becoming, even if it means letting go of old patterns, familiar roles, or relationships that no longer fit. Growth is often messy and uncomfortable. It requires us to step out of our comfort zones, to question things we once took for granted, and to challenge our own limitations. Yet, when we commit to growth, we're committing to living fully, to leaning into our potential, and to experiencing life with depth and authenticity. Growth demands honesty. It asks us to look at parts of ourselves we may have ignored or dismissed, to confront the ways we may hold ourselves back, and to acknowledge the fears that keep us small. It's not always easy to face these things because they require vulnerability, a willingness to admit that we don't have it all figured out. But when we're loyal to growth, we embrace the idea that our lives aren't static, that we're allowed to change, and that it's okay to not have all the answers. Being loyal to growth also means staying open to new experiences, people, and ideas. It's easy to settle into routines or seek comfort in the familiar, but growth lies at the edge of what we know. When we open ourselves up to the unknown, we invite the opportunity to learn, to expand, and to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world. This kind of loyalty requires humility, the recognition that we're always a work in progress, always evolving, and that we'll never reach a final, perfected version of ourselves. Choosing growth sometimes means making hard choices. It may require us to leave situations that feel safe but limiting, or to step away from people who aren't willing to grow alongside us. These choices can feel isolating, even heartbreaking, but they're necessary for honoring the person we're becoming. Growth often calls us to let go of what we once clung to, not because those things were bad, but because they no longer align with who we are. In being loyal to growth, we give ourselves permission to change, to release the past with gratitude, and to trust that what lies ahead will be more aligned with our truest selves. When we're loyal to growth, we understand that mistakes and setbacks are part of the process. Growth isn't a straight line, it's filled with detours, challenges, and moments of doubt. There will be times when we question our path, when the urge to return to what feels safe and predictable is strong. But each time we choose growth over comfort, we're choosing a life that is more genuine and fulfilling. We're saying, I'm willing to take risks, to stumble, and to keep moving forward because I believe in what I'm becoming. Being loyal to growth also means celebrating our small wins along the way. Growth isn't just about big transformations, it's in the subtle shifts, the small steps, and the gradual changes that happen over time. When we honor these moments, we acknowledge the effort it takes to evolve, to let go, and to keep growing. Loyalty to growth is about being gentle with ourselves, recognizing that real change takes time and patience. It's about seeing ourselves as worthy of the journey and deserving of the life we're working to create. Ultimately, being loyal to growth is about honoring our potential, even when it's inconvenient, difficult, or misunderstood by others. It's trusting that we're meant for more than staying in the same place. We deserve to be surrounded by people who support and encourage our growth, who cheer us on as we push our boundaries, and who remind us that we're capable of more than we often give ourselves credit for. In being loyal to growth, we're committing to a lifetime of learning, of embracing change, and of becoming more fully ourselves. We're saying yes to the unknown, yes to the possibility of becoming someone new, and yes to a life that reflects our deepest values and aspirations. And through this loyalty to growth, we create a life that is rich, authentic, and beautifully our own. Honoring yourself first is about reclaiming the relationship you have with yourself and making it a priority. It's not about selfishness or putting others last. It's about recognizing that when we respect, care for, and nurture ourselves, we're able to show up more fully and authentically in every part of our lives. It's a gentle but firm reminder that we too deserve the same compassion, kindness, and understanding that we extend to others. Honoring yourself starts with acknowledging your own worth, even when it feels uncomfortable. We're often so practiced at putting others' needs before our own that it almost feels unnatural to ask, what do I need right now? But when we neglect ourselves, we lose touch with what makes us feel whole, grounded, and fulfilled. Honoring yourself means realizing that you're not here just to please others, to fit into someone else's expectations, or to live according to someone else's blueprint. You're here to live your own life, one that reflects your values, dreams, and needs. It can feel revolutionary to put yourself first, especially if you've been taught that your worth is tied to what you can do for others. But self-honor is a declaration of respect. It's saying that you are deserving of time, attention, and love, no strings attached. It's about listening to your inner voice, even when it challenges the opinions of others. Honoring yourself is standing up for what you believe in, even if it makes you stand out or invites judgment. It's a commitment to trust yourself, to know that your instincts and values are worth following. To honor yourself is also to set boundaries that protect your energy and well-being. Boundaries can feel like a radical act, but they're necessary to create the space we need to thrive. When we honor ourselves, we learn to say no without guilt, to protect our time without apology, and to only allow people into our lives who respect our boundaries. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out, they're about ensuring that our relationships are built on mutual respect. By honoring our own needs, we set a standard for how we wish to be treated. Self-honor also means celebrating your own journey, your growth, and even your imperfections. It's easy to focus on what we think we lack or what we haven't yet achieved, but honoring yourself means recognizing the beauty in who you are right now. It's about allowing yourself to feel proud of the progress you've made, no matter how small, and finding joy in the unique path you're carving. When we honor ourselves, we let go of the need to compare our journey to anyone else's. We accept that our worth isn't defined by external success or validation, it's inherent and unwavering. Honoring yourself first requires vulnerability and courage. It's a process of being honest about what you want, what you need, and what you're willing to let go of. Sometimes it means walking away from situations or relationships that don't support your growth, even when it's hard. And sometimes it means giving yourself permission to rest, to take up space, or to express what's in your heart without holding back. Honoring yourself means trusting that who you are is enough, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. And when we honor ourselves, we become role models for others. We show our friends, family, and even strangers that self-respect is possible, that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being, and that it's necessary to live a life that feels true. By honoring ourselves, we invite others to do the same. We create a ripple effect of self-respect and empowerment. Ultimately, honoring yourself first is about creating a life that reflects the truth of who you are. It's about choosing yourself again and again with the understanding that in doing so, you're not just enriching your own life, but also enhancing the lives of those around you. When we honor ourselves, we bring our best selves into our relationships, our work, and our communities. We begin to live with integrity, alignment, and a deep sense of peace. And from that place, we find a strength and resilience that allows us to face anything life brings our way. Questioning the norms is an act of courage. It's choosing to look beyond what's commonly accepted, what's comfortable, and what's expected, and asking if it truly aligns with who we are. We're often raised with a set of beliefs and ideas that come from our families, communities, or cultures. These norms can offer a sense of belonging and certainty, guiding us through life's challenges. But sometimes they also hold us back, creating invisible boundaries around what we think is possible or acceptable. When we start to question these norms, we're opening ourselves up to the freedom of making conscious choices. It's about examining what we've taken for granted and considering whether these beliefs still serve us. Maybe you've always felt pressured to follow a specific career path, to define success in a certain way, or to conform to societal expectations around relationships, appearance, or status. But questioning these norms gives us the space to explore our own values, desires, and ideas. It allows us to ask, is this truly what I want? And to be honest, if the answer is no. Questioning the norms doesn't mean rejecting everything we've ever learned. It means sifting through it, keeping what resonates, and letting go of what doesn't. We're giving ourselves permission to redefine what's meaningful on our terms. This process can feel uncomfortable because norms provide a kind of safety net, a framework within which we know how to operate. Challenging that framework means stepping into the unknown, which can feel isolating at times. We might worry about disappointing others or being misunderstood. But in the act of questioning, we also discover our own voice, our unique perspective, and a deeper sense of purpose. Asking questions is a gateway to growth. It invites us to see the world through a fresh lens, to notice opportunities for change, and to confront injustices that we might otherwise ignore. When we start questioning norms, we often see the ways they perpetuate outdated ideas or exclude voices. It's about understanding that just because something has always been done this way doesn't mean it's the best way. This insight gives us the power to make different choices, ones that better reflect our evolving understanding and our desire to contribute to a more inclusive, compassionate world. Questioning the norms also means staying curious, keeping an open mind, and being willing to learn. It's about asking why and what if instead of just accepting because. This mindset can be incredibly liberating because it challenges us to dream bigger, to see beyond limitations, and to explore possibilities that may have once felt out of reach, instead of living within the narrow walls of what's normal. We start to build a life that feels authentic and true to who we are. We give ourselves permission to grow and change in ways that reflect our own journey, not someone else's expectations. As we question norms, we also empower others to do the same. When we step outside of conventional paths, we show others that there's no one way to live, succeed, or find happiness. We inspire others to explore their own beliefs, to ask their own questions, and to live with more authenticity. And in doing so, we create a culture that values diversity of thought, where people are celebrated for their individuality rather than pressured to conform. Ultimately, questioning the norms is about building a life that feels meaningful, aligned, and true. It's about the freedom to choose, to think for ourselves, and to live according to our own values. It's recognizing that we're not just here to follow a script written by others, we're here to write our own story. So let's be brave enough to ask questions, to challenge assumptions, and to create a path that feels uniquely ours. In doing so, we step into a life that honors our deepest truths and inspires others to do the same. Finding mutual respect is the foundation of any relationship that's meant to last. It's about seeing another person fully and being seen fully in return, without judgment or conditions. Mutual respect isn't about agreeing on everything or having the same beliefs, it's about honoring each other's differences while finding common ground in how we treat one another. In a world that often pushes us toward competition or comparison, mutual respect brings us back to connection, showing us that we can stand beside one another with empathy and understanding, even when our perspectives differ. Mutual respect is built on a foundation of open communication and active listening. It means truly hearing someone else without interrupting, without planning our next response, and without assuming we already know what they're going to say. When we listen with respect, we're offering a space for the other person to express themselves openly and honestly. We're saying, I care enough to understand where you're coming from, even if I don't feel the same way. This kind of listening can be transformative because it invites vulnerability and empathy, allowing each person to feel safe in sharing their truth. Respect also means setting and honoring boundaries. In relationships marked by mutual respect, boundaries are not seen as barriers but as guidelines that help us understand each other better. Boundaries clarify what feels safe and supportive, and they allow us to give from a place of fullness rather than obligation. When both people are able to express their boundaries without fear of judgment or resentment, the relationship grows stronger and more sustainable. Respecting boundaries is a way of saying, I care about you enough to honor your needs just as I honor my own. Finding mutual respect also requires us to show up with honesty and integrity. It's about being consistent in our words and actions, showing others that they can trust us to be true to ourselves. Respect thrives when there is transparency, when we're able to be clear and upfront rather than hiding behind what we think others want to hear. This honesty creates a sense of stability in the relationship as both people know they're receiving the real version of each other, not a version edited for approval or acceptance. Another powerful aspect of mutual respect is celebrating each other's growth. In relationships rooted in respect, we're not threatened by each other's successes. Instead, we cheer one another on. We recognize that someone else's growth does not diminish our own and that there's room for everyone to thrive. When we respect one another, we're able to be each other's biggest supporters, helping each other rise to new heights and celebrating those achievements as though they were our own. This kind of support fosters a deep connection because it allows both people to feel uplifted, valued, and seen for their unique journey. Mutual respect also means being willing to repair when things go wrong. No relationship is without its challenges, and there will be times when misunderstandings, hurt feelings, or disagreements arise. Respect isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about navigating it with compassion and a willingness to make things right. When we approach these moments with an open heart, ready to listen, apologize, or forgive, we demonstrate that the relationship is more important than being right. Repairing with respect requires humility and the courage to face uncomfortable emotions, but it leads to deeper trust and a stronger bond. In the end, finding mutual respect is about recognizing the inherent worth of each person. It's an understanding that we're all on our own paths, carrying our own struggles and stories. When we approach each other with respect, we're creating a space where everyone can be exactly who they are without fear of judgment. This creates a relationship that feels safe, supportive, and expansive, a relationship where both people can grow together without compromising their individuality. Mutual respect is a commitment we make to honor not just each other, but also ourselves. It's choosing to show up with compassion, to communicate openly, and to celebrate each other's uniqueness. When we find mutual respect, we build a relationship that has the resilience to weather any storm, because it's based on a foundation of understanding, trust, and genuine care. It's a gift we give to one another that strengthens the bond between us and brings out the best in who we are, together and individually.